We start this morning with that midair collision. All 67 people on board both the American Eagle jet and that UH-60 Army Black Hawk helicopter, they're all presumed dead after colliding over the Potomac on Wednesday night, just seconds before that jet was supposed to land. Glad you're with us. I'm Adam Longo.
And I'm Megan Clark. Recovery efforts are set to continue today for those victims who have not yet been found, several dozen. Now, here's a live look toward the crash site. You can see the flashing lights there. Those appear to be coming from a boat out on the water. We know some boats were there overnight just to make sure the area is secure. We know more than 40 victims have been pulled from the water, but as we mentioned, several so far have not yet been found, making the work crews are doing even that much more important today.
Yeah, very soon they're going to be bringing in a crane to try and lift up pieces of the fuselage. So we are expecting considerable rain that could impact recovery efforts.
Exactly, especially probably between about 11 and 2. I think that's in D.C. when we'll see some of our steadiest rain. So definitely grab the umbrella, but those crews definitely dealing with more impactful weather today. We had some rain overspread much of the region overnight, so you'll walk out the door and you'll notice the wet pavement, but right now seeing most of the rain south of D.C., although right now eastern Fairfax County, you can see a little bit of that shower activity starting to fill in. You'll notice though over the next 12 hours our rainfall potential really increasing here. So again, maybe even 10 o'clock or so, that's when we'll see some of that widespread rain, and then maybe a little bit of a lull here through the middle of the afternoon before rain chances increase again. So as you're getting up this morning and getting your kids ready for school, make sure they have all of the rain gear. Recess likely inside today, and going home might be a little bit dry for some. I've got to look ahead at your evening forecast here coming up in just a little bit.
All right, Eileen, thank you so much. Well, newly confirmed Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says he met with some of the families of those victims of the midair collision. He put out this statement saying, quote, "Their pain is immeasurable. I can't take away their pain, but I can do a very small part to help ease it by keeping my promise to get to the bottom of what happened and be 100% transparent about the results of the investigation. They have my word." And 7 News' John Gonzalez is live now, not far from where the plane and that Army helicopter collided. John, you've been covering this since this happened. You spoke with a friend of one of those victims.
Yeah, she said she woke up yesterday morning to the news and was absolutely floored, devastated. Now, black boxes have been recovered. That's going to be key with this investigation. And of course, the search will resume this morning. Divers will be back in the water here in the Potomac River, the frigid Potomac River. Now, these NTSB accident investigations are very thorough, but can take a long time, at least a year, to complete a final report. The agency hopes to issue at least a preliminary report within 30 days. Now, among the victims who died in the plane crash were 7 friends from Maryland who were on a hunting trip in Wichita, Kansas. One of them was Waldorf resident Steve Johnson, who was also an avid fisherman. He was a part of the White Marlin Open in Ocean City each year. His wife permitted us to share this photo of Steve. Some of the guys were members of the UA Steamfitters Local 602 based out of Prince George's County. The union represents workers in the heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, and process piping industries. I spoke with friend Megan Davey, who grew up with Steve and some of the other victims in southern Maryland.
And it's going to be a shock to the community. They were all very close from what I know, and I know at least one of them is a huge staple of the community with his fishing and hunting, and it's a real loss, and it's gonna be tough, especially with their younger families, and it's something you just don't expect to hear coming out of a town in southern Maryland.
Now, the local union released a statement, take a look, saying, quote, "These members will be forever in our hearts, and may God bless them and their loved ones. May they forever rest in peace," unquote. Again, in just a couple of hours, the search dive teams will be back in the river here next to DCA. Reporting live, John Gonzalez, 7 News.
All right, John, thank you. Also on board the plane were some very young figure skaters and their coaches. Spencer Lane and Jenna Hahn were members of the Skating Club of Boston who were returning from the U.S. Figure Skating National Development Camp in Wichita, Kansas. Their coaches, Vadim Nomov and Yenya Shishkova, were also on board. We're also learning there were some local figure skaters also on board from the Ashburn Ice House there in Loudoun County. 7 News' Rebecca Turco is there at the Ashburn Ice House in Loudoun County where they practice. Rebecca, we're able to learn more about these young victims. What have you been able to find out?
Yeah, well, it's really just devastating, and we've learned that it's just such a tight-knit community. It's a small community, the ice skating community, but because of that, whether people knew each other personally or knew through practices, they knew of each other. So it's impacting so many people in the area. And as you mentioned, some of those young skaters practiced at this ice rink here. They've been coming back from Kansas for that. And yesterday, people came to the ice house to bring flowers and to build a memorial for them. It was a time for them to comfort each other and to come together as a community. We know a Loudoun County father was on that flight with his 2 daughters, and we know 12-year-old Brielle and her mother Justina Beyer were also on that plane. We learned that from family. And skaters over at the Fairfax Ice Arena also yesterday mourned the loss of victims that they knew. We were told some of the victims had practices at that rink. Friends and loved ones left behind flowers there and a makeshift memorial.
It's the kids, you saw them to grow up from 4 to 6 years old to right now can compete in the national levels, prepare for the futures, and suddenly they're all passed away. It's very, very sad.
So much to process, and there's a vigil for one of the girls lost happening at 9:30 over at a rink in Prince George's County where practices used to be held. We're going to bring that to you. We're going to head there after these morning hits wrap up. But for now, reporting live in Ashburn, Rebecca Turco, 7 News.
Rebecca, thank you. 6:37 at the alert desk. And right now, the bodies of all 3 soldiers who were on board the Army helicopter involved in the midair collision have been recovered. Officials say the remains will be at Air Force Mortuary Affairs Operations. That's at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. That's the office that coordinates the dignified transfer of fallen service members. And we're seeing one of the soldiers here showing this picture again. This here is Ryan O'Hara from Georgia. He leaves behind a wife and a 1-year-old son. We're told the crew was very experienced and very familiar with that route. Adam?
All right, thank you. So this morning, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder from the American Airlines jet are in the hands of the National Transportation Safety Board. You're looking at the remnants of the helicopter here in the water. So NTSB is going to be looking through both of those so-called black boxes to try to get some information about what may have happened with this flight. Meantime, runway 33, where the plane was about to land, that's the shorter of the 2 active runways at Reagan. That is going to be closed until at least next Friday as the investigation continues. All
right, Adam, thank you. And President Trump has signed executive actions in the wake of the collision. One is a presidential memorandum titled Immediate Assessment of Aviation Safety. And according to the Trump administration, it's aimed at undoing damage from, quote, DEI and woke policies.
To be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have. I don't know. Incompetence might have played a role. We'll let you know that. But we want the most competent people. We don't care what race they are. We want the most competent people.
And President Trump did not provide any evidence that unqualified people may have been put in critical positions like air traffic control. He also signed a memorandum officially appointing a new acting commissioner to the Federal Aviation Administration since the top post was vacant.